Today I'm going to read a short story that I wrote quite a few years ago. A very short story. I don't even think it's really a finished story. But I'm going to try reading it anyway. There's barely any punctuation or anything. Try to talk a little louder than I did in the last video too, because that didn't come out too good. Okay, titled The Shadow People. They are people who have been through spontaneous combustion to evolve into a being of pure energy. What they are able to do. Well, this is just a simple explanation, I guess. They travel from place to place in an instant through a micro black hole created by any type of small explosion, even one too small to be detected by the human eye. They are also able to generate projectile energy waves to control or destroy normal matter. They also seem to be able to somehow enable normal human beings to become shadow people themselves. They sometimes appear to the naked eye as a shadowy figure in many shapes and sizes. Their intended goal is not truly known. This one goes on to the resistors, I guess people who are against them. Normal human beings who have nearly gone through the process of spontaneous combustion themselves, but somehow have resisted the completion, but retain a similar ability to control energy, but yet it is somehow different from the type of energy that the shadow people control. This energy is completely visible to the naked eye, and they seem to also be able to move at a much faster rate than a normal human, some of which cannot even be detected by the human eye. Most of them have a preoccupation with the occult or martial arts. Well, that's kind of interesting. Then it goes on to something called the unbroken cycle. And I'm not sure about this. I have 3 pages of this. Yeah, this just goes into the actual story, I guess. Let me see. Where was I? The unbroken cycle. Am I still recording? Yes, it looks like it's still recording. I hope the sounds are right this time. The unbroken cycle. Here's the story of how one shadow person came into being. It was another bright sunny day for John Doe. He had just awoke at the break of dawn on yet another Saturday. He had plans to go fishing today, but little did he know that this would be the last day as a normal human being. First thing he did was notice that his answering machine had a message on it. It was from his friend Jack. He wanted to let him know he wouldn't be able to go with him today. Something had come up. John had met Jack a few months back. All he really knows about him is that he works for the government on some kind of project he wasn't allowed to talk about. Now, where am I? What is, was, or where anything about where it's being worked on. Ugh. Is that like a typo? What is, was, or where? Anything about where it's being worked on. He met him at Twilight Lake while fishing one weekend. And they became friends because neither had a fishing buddy. So John decided he'd go fishing anyway because he had nothing better to do. And he really wanted to catch that one that always gets away from him. And this weekend he planned to do it. He had just bought a new rod and wanted to try his luck with it. The last rod he had broke due to this monster fish. So there was no way he was going to pass up any chance to catch this creature just to get even for breaking what was once his lucky rod, not his favorite rod. So John packed up his gear and set off for Twilight Lake. When he got there, he noticed a van parked on the opposite side of the lake, with no one in sight around it. But this was nothing too strange because lots of people like to hike in the woods around the lake, so he just went about his business and unpacked his gear. He headed towards his favorite spot to fish. There was a little dock that had a few trees around it, so it was a pretty good place to catch fish. Plus, that's where this creature likes to hang out. As he got closer to the dock, he noticed what looked like someone had spilled oil on the dock right where he likes to sit and try his luck with this creature. I got an itch. As he walked down the dock, he realized it wasn't oil at all. It was some sort of strange-looking liquid he had never seen before. It was like a puddle of oil, but you could see. Gotta flip the page. Clearly to the dock beneath, like it were made of thin air. It was almost like a shadow, but had depth. And there was clearly something more there, like a transparent mist of some kind that was perfectly clear, but to him, but blocked out most of the light. I skipped a whole sentence. From the sun. This did not make any sense to him. How could it be doing this? So he took out his knife and he stuck it. Stuck it, where am I? Stuck it in to see if it was really there or if it was his eyes playing tricks on him. Just as he did, it shot up the knife and touched his hand, and instantly there was a bright blue flash of light. Afterward, there was nothing but a pile of ash and his fishing knife. John had become a shadow person. This is weird. The thoughts of a shadow person cannot be known. Let's take a trip and see where one goes. Guess it's just explaining it's going to follow. A sharp crack like a firecracker echoes across the lake. Next thing we notice, everything fades away into darkness. Things begin to clear. We find ourselves just outside of New York City. We start to move a little, then faster and faster. We're within city limits in no time at all. We sink through the road surface and find ourselves in the sewer. There are rats everywhere running around from us. A few seem to just vanish without a trace as we travel along. All of a sudden we stop and head back to the city above. Where, I forgot where. It just goes right to we are in an alleyway. No punctuation at all on this. There's a stray dog eating some garbage. It's brown with white around its collar and paws. It vanishes as it were never there, and then we start to move again. There's a homeless man just walking up. He looks our way, and then all of a sudden he's flying through the air. And he lands. Where's he land? He lands on top of a beat up old dumpster. We start to move again. All the time, trash is flying everywhere. An old pallet in the direction we were traveling seems to explode into splinters. Trash cans seem to get crushed against the brick walls that line the alley. Then we stop, everything settles to the ground, and we sit there until nightfall. We start to move again, but it's not the same as last time. Nothing seems to be disturbed at all. We simply pass right through everything like it wasn't there, except for once in a while when we pass directly under a streetlight and a little breeze kicks up. We notice a flyer on a lamppost that says "Lost Dog, Reward $100. It's brown and white around its collar and paws, answers to the name Jake. A van pulls up in front of us. Someone says we found one. A sharp crack echoes through the streets. That's the wrong here. We hear a distant fading voice say, "There it goes." And I misspelled voice. Debbie's dog. Oh no, is this the dog Jake? Little Debbie is a 9-year-old girl who lives near Central Park in New York. A few weeks ago, Debbie's dog Jake ran away from home. She has been searching ever since, putting up flyers on every lamppost and mailbox she could. It's been almost a month since Jake ran away, but she hasn't given up hope. People all over say that they have seen him, but he runs into an alley or around a corner and they lose him. One day when Debbie was out looking, she thought she spotted him about a block away. She called his name and he stopped. It must be him, she thought. So she ran as fast as she could to get to where he was, but by the time she had gotten there, he was gone without a trace. She couldn't see him anywhere. She couldn't see him anywhere. This didn't make any sense at all to her. She thought she must have imagined it. So she just continued looking, calling the name Jake. "Where are you? Jake?" All of a sudden, out of nowhere, she thought she could hear a fading bark that seemed to be getting further and further away. She tried to follow it, but it was moving too fast, and it was heading in the direction of her home. So she ran as fast as she could. And when she got there was Jake sitting on the steps. She was so happy to see him. She started to cry and she hugged him, brought him inside and gave him a bath. As soon as she started the water, Jake seemed to disappear into thin air. Oh, poor Jake. I think Jake teleported from what I'm about to read. She couldn't believe her eyes. She started to cry and ran to her room where she found Jake hiding under the bed. Wiping the tears from her eyes, she said, "Jake, how did you get in here?" Back to John's story. John's the guy who got changed into one at the lake, I guess. That was his name, right? Yeah, John Doe. We suddenly appear somewhere outside the town of Point Pleasant, New Jersey. It's a tourist trap for beachgoers from New York, otherwise known as Benny's to the locals. The first thing we notice is the smell of the ocean in the air and all the blinking lights in the distance. There must be a boardwalk. We must. And this is messed up. We must on a beach nearby. There must be a beach nearby. Another typo. Must be a beach nearby to it. It's night and there doesn't seem to be anyone around. Where we are. Doesn't seem to be anybody around where we are. There's a big gap in the sentence there. No explanations. But we can hear the voices of people in the distance. We suddenly turn and head toward the water. The surf seems rough, but we pass through it as if it were nothing. It gets pitch black. Can't see much at all, but we can tell we are still moving. We keep moving for some time. Then we notice the water above us is getting lighter as the sun comes up. The water around us seems to move away as if it were being pushed somehow. We stop and sit as if waiting for something. Then we notice a boat overhead. There seem to be two divers in the water headed toward us. Some kind of box that has wires going to the surface. We start to move again, just a few feet, and really slow compared to before. We notice a small vortex of water form in front of us. Then everything fades away to black. We find ourselves in the middle of a grassy field. In the distance, we see a house and a dirt road, with what appears to be a horse-drawn carriage. We seem to be in Amish country somewhere in Pennsylvania. It's daylight this time, and the grass around us starts to blow to the ground as we once again start to move. We almost seem to be avoiding people as we move across the field. A hole in the ground seems to open up in front of us, and we fall into it. It gets dark as night as we fall further. Then we stop and start to move forward, right through the ground as if it weren't even there. We seem to travel for days this time until once again everything goes black. As things start to clear, we find ourselves on a barren landscape with nothing around but these small metal sheds of some kind. Not much else, we notice. The sky has these streaks of light shooting through it like a meteor shower, but they seem too low to be meteors. Everything seems like another planet. Our stay does not last very long, as something comes out of one of the sheds and prompts a quick jump back into the darkness, as if we are not meant to be noticed at all. Things clear this time to reveal a forest of trees, but it is night this time, so we travel a while without disturbance of any kind. The landscape seems like something we would only see in Alaska or maybe northern Canada. We seem to be traveling pointlessly from place to place without reason at all. Again, the landscape fades into black, as it has so many times before. This time we find ourselves at the bottom of a lake. We start to move forward, but out of nowhere this creature appears that can best be described as looking like the Loch Ness Monster. Are we in Ireland? A small vortex of water appears, and again black. We again appear to be at the bottom of the lake, but it's much shallower. Then at last we start to move toward the shoreline. A lot of typos there. Then into the woods. Trees seem to explode out of the way. The daylight seems to cause this somehow, but who can be sure? We come to a road and turn to travel down it, back toward the lake. It would seem, but after that trip to the woods and all that turning, who can be sure? We notice a sign that says 5 miles to Twilight Lake. Could this be where we started? As we get to the lake, we notice a small dock, some trees, and a van across the other side of the lake. Then there's a flash of light and everything goes black, and that's the end of the story. Oh well. I hope that came out all right. I'll see you around.